What's up, you guys? Welcome back to another episode of the Coachable Podcast. We are back in the studio today with my dear friend and sister, Merriliz Monzon. I'm so thrilled to have her here and just let you guys get a sneak peek into what our friendship is like and get into her head, her heart, and the work that she does. She's the founder of Yen City. She's the co-founder of Radiance Festival here in Las Vegas coming up June 1st. At Area 15, and she is a powerhouse of a woman, truly an embodiment of the divine feminine and a transformation facilitator. So I believe and am confident that in this conversation, you are going to feel something in your heart, something within you is going to awaken and become more alive to the truth of who you are simply by experiencing who she is. So I'm excited for this moment, this conversation. It's been a long time coming. So welcome to the show.
Yum. Thanks so much.
Of course.
Yeah, thanks, Tori.
Of course. So you and I met, how long has it been now?
Oh my goodness. Lifetimes?
Yeah. I mean, if we want to go that far back, we've been doing this for a while.
Oh my gosh.
Not that long, like a year and a half, maybe a little bit before Radiance last summer.
That's true.
You and I connected. And so when I first heard about you, it was through Chris, who was on this show, who we've had come in here before. And I heard about you and like that you're just like a ball of fire. And when I met you in person, it was the day of Radiance Festival. You were running from one room to the next because you were teaching yoga and then you were facilitating Diksha and then you were doing sacred geometry stuff and then you're like all over and hosting a million people. And you and I got to have a short, like 15, 20 minute drop in this tiny little room in Area 15 in the green room. Right. And that was the first time I really got to just feel you and feel your heart. And I was like, this girl is powerful. And obviously just through the work that you do with Yen City and also Radiance, like you can't birth something like that into the world without a lot of vision and a lot of intention and purpose behind what you do. And so I want you to begin by just sharing like, why did you start Yen City? How did you get into transformation work? Give us some background for those that don't know you and are getting to know you.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, that drop in the green room was everything because you know when you're in the right place at the right time, when you can go so deep in your purpose and explain it to a level that we are on that path to serve. And so I believe, I mean, ever since I was young, since I'm from San Diego, I grew up in a spiritual community, a non-denominational church, and I grew up learning to meditate at like age 5. And I grew up in a space in a Christian-based church where we were taught to honor all paths, that Jesus is the way shower. And if you learn these teachings from Buddha and different types of walks of path, it's the respect of having a personal relationship with source. And so that's always been embedded in me. And then in Las Vegas, I experienced my first Diksha, which is a transmission of source energy that awakens. And immediately I felt the knowing to, when I went through an awakening course here in Las Vegas to go to India, I heard this inner voice called Darshan, and I never heard of it before. I wrote it down on my journal. And then a month later, I was on my first solo trip international and it changed my life. Just going to, then it was called Oneness University. And actually it's also where Tony Robbins took his wife to heal from vertigo. Lots of world leaders have gone, lots of celebrities. You awaken into high states of consciousness, you transform, you do the work, and you come home. And I've never went back. I just have always been on a journey that like, it's so easy for me to access myself and look at all the, can I swear on here? All the shit that is blocking me from experiencing what's right in front of me, all the resistance, all the ego. I had no idea. I've always been this like fun, positive energy, and people always knew that of me. And I had no idea I had so much shit that I was holding onto that was blocking me to experience my relationships and actually experience like love in my relationships. And once you get a taste of that, you want the whole world to know that.
Yeah, that's exactly how I felt when I got my first peek over through the veil of like Oh, there's so much more than I've been experiencing. And I just accessed what true power is. And I want everyone to, and what would happen if I actually connected to that internal power all the time. Yeah. So for you, how long were you in India for training?
Yeah, so multiple years. 1 year I went like 3 times in the year. I've been 6 times since 2015. So from my first journey in 2013, and then I came back and received my trainings as a oneness trainer, and then I came back and received my trainings as an advanced trainer, and then there's deepenings in between. They no longer have those trainings, but the community is global and worldwide, and we continue to receive transmissions when we have live. It's from Amma Bhagavan in India, but the work gave me that total knowing that I'm here to help people bring this to their inner world and to their physical wealth and relationship, like how unconscious we are of why we don't have the finances we seek, why we are repeating these patterns in our relationships. And it's so broken down. So the trainings that I give still today in my relationship course, in my wealth process, are those trainings embedded with a lot of my upbringing and my experience, obviously, too. But it's the breakdown of the levels of hurt that are so freaking unconscious, running the mind. We have no idea why we are the way that we are, but it's the ability to see it. And I mean, even we had a discussion the other day. It's like, I'm even seeing something this week that I was so unaware of in how I'm showing up in my friendships and my relationships. And I had to go there. But some people don't know how to get there. And that's why I guide them too.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, we can't change something we're unaware of. And that's why they say ignorance is bliss. I've said this on the show so many times. Like one of my first coaches was like, ignorance is bliss for a reason. And like, awareness is a bitch, because if you stay in just awareness and you start to become aware of the patterns, or become aware that you're stuck, or become aware that what you're doing is not working. But so many people, like you said, they don't know how to get out of it. This is why people in talk therapy can talk for years about their problems and never make progress. So I'm curious, like in your, I mean, you're really focused on transformation. Like when people work with you, whether it's in group or whatever, it's, you come in here to change. You're not going to leave the same. So what is that? Is there a framework that you take people through? How do you begin to take someone who is unaware of what's blocking them into this state of understanding and deeper knowing of who they are and how to shift that?
That's such a great awareness to contemplate, because the truth of it is you give them the space because even me as a trainer, I've witnessed with, the festival, with my business, with all the things I am called to serve through, how I don't even necessarily always take the space, but it's in the in-between. It's in the space of the breath that you can calm the F down and also take an opportunity to listen. So all of my transformational processes provide the space. It could be as short as 5 minutes to 30 to an hour, but the ability to be in a space to not only breathe and listen, to contemplate. The framework is the contemplation. Look at your hurts. Look at the 4 levels of where you're not listening. Where do you stand? Ooh.
What are those? Tell me.
Yeah. Okay. Who's ready for the juice? Yes. Let's go. Okay.
4 levels of not listening. I've never heard of this, and I'm ready to learn.
Well, so there's 4 levels of hurt. And there's also the art of listening, which is transformational. I will say this, that we're in 2 levels of consciousness, and we're either in a state of conflict, which is where most of humanity is. You wake up in the morning and you're like, what should I wear? Or what should I eat? Or should I go to this party? Or should I go to that party? And then you choose one. And then still, even in that decision, you're like, I should have chosen the other thing. It's like we can never be at peace with the decisions we've made, and we can never accept what's right here unless we're in a flow state, which is the second state of consciousness, or a oneness state where, we've experienced this, where you're just looking at your dog and you're present, or you're in nature and there's no thought of tomorrow or yesterday, or even someone scares you, you're like, and there's no thought of anything. You're so present that you're so connected to what's next. You can be so open. That's why in those states, things can happen so instantly, because you're not fighting what's present. But most of humanity is in a state of conflict. And when we cannot be present, we deflect everything that's there for us. And the suffering is so loud that it goes into the subconscious mind. So we become addictive, we become compulsive, we become repetitive in our behavior. But if we don't deal with the 4 levels of hurt, or if we don't witness where the moment we get hurt, it becomes subconscious.
Right.
So the real power is to actually look and learn to listen, because the first, I will give you this, the first level of hurt is when you're speaking with someone, it could be with anyone, it's the level of discomfort that you're not able to deal with. And what happens is, I'll give an example. I had this even with a previous partner where it was like, I loved this movie. And he was like, eh. And I'm like, oh, this person's an asshole. Like, this person
he doesn't love the movie.
And I was like, this person has no culture. This person, how can he not love this? And I immediately judged him as insensitive. And from that point of view, what happens as the mind is loud. We are not the mind, but we categorize that person based on the level of discomfort that we felt at that moment. So what happens is we put this person in a box. Like, I'm like, now every time I relate to this person, I'm thinking, oh, he's insensitive. And then that is what creates levels of hurt. The very first level of discomfort. You can't deal with it. You know, like if me and you were sisters, right? If me and your face right now.
I just had a break. I just connected a dot.
Oh my gosh, share.
I just connected a dot.
I love that.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so let me make sure I'm understanding you.
Okay.
So based on the first, is it the first time you interact with somebody and you have a conflict or
yeah. It doesn't have to be the first time you interact. It could be you could love this person for your life.
Sure.
But the moment there's a sense of discomfort and you cannot address or sit with or recognize, it becomes put in the subconscious, because you already create you create an image. That's the second level of hurt. You create an image of the person.
Okay. So I'm thinking of a past relationship.
Oof, that's where it is.
Yeah. And this person was, had introduced me to altered state consciousness and substances that helped to create altered states. And I remember wanting to have an experience with MDMA for the first time. And it was my birthday and we went and we were going to have this beautiful experience. And he and I take MDMA and I'm looking forward to it and really opening my heart and all these things. And all of a sudden he leaves. Oh, he goes to the bathroom and I'm like, where is he? Where is he? And we were out that night. And this was several years back. And there was a guy who was like, is your friend good? And I'm like, I don't know. I hope so. Cause we just took MDMA. And he's like, oh, is he good on that pill I gave him? So apparently the guy that I was with had taken a pill from this random person in the club. And I went into panic. Oh, because I've never had an experience like this before. This is somebody I wanted like to have a safe, trusting experience with. And now I'm all of a sudden panicked. And that night I had so much discomfort that I didn't know how to sit with and deal with. And it created this image that I can't trust you. And that, although that night was not a reflection of who he was in any way, it created something I could never really, I struggled to get past. And it definitely was a rupture in our relationship because I now saw him in a certain way and put him in that box and labeled that every time we had an interaction.
And we do it to each other and people do it to us unconsciously and we do it to other people. Family is going to be the biggest source where, I've witnessed this. It's like, here I am. I'm a woman that's grown in my business and then you go back to family. The power is you done the work. When you go home to your family, how is that? Because we're all projecting our personalities of what they've known me to be since I was young. And they, sometimes still treat me as that. And then I show up as that because of the container that we're in. So thank you for sharing that because that's valid what you felt. However, we're something new every day. I'm not who I was yesterday. I'm not who I was 2 weeks ago. I've transformed from my processes since then. But we treat each other by the way that we knew from each other in the past, not giving them the opportunity to be, hey, you're someone completely new right now. Right. Let me learn from who you are in this moment. Right. And that's where we miss so much of our relationships.
Yes, girl. Yeah. And then that projection just keeps getting placed on them over and over, or then we take that and project that onto someone else. You know what I mean? So, okay. So if the first level is, say it again for people at home.
So it's basically it's the lack of ability to process the discomfort. It's the discomfort in the moment is the first level of hurt. You're like cut. Yep. And then you close off and then you treat them. And the second would be you create an image toward this person. Third, it becomes real because once you've placed an image on the other, you treat them as that repetitively. Now you start to create a judgment. And what happens in judgment is you start to act from that judgment. So then every time you show up, you're like, no. And they're like, why is she like that? Because you've created the image and now you're acting from that image from the place of judgment. Like, you know, I've witnessed this in relationship. It's like, oh, this person's insensitive, so I'm not going to give them the opportunity to even be sensitive. I'm going to close that door, and they have no idea why I'm not as open, but it's because I've placed that image and now I'm acting from that image. Okay. And that's where, you know, that level of acting is, it gets harsh because if you are so hurt, that's going to be running your unconscious mind. Now you're acting with your response. You're being verbally abusive. Maybe you're being physically withdrawn. You start to speak from the place of the judgment. Yeah. And then, you know, the last is obviously, it's like a separation. It's indifference. And indifference is probably it's the worst because you're not even willing to feel. You're just willing to cut and go there. You know, you're not willing to witness the other as they are now. You're being, meh. You don't even open yourself to experience what's there. So indifference is actually pretty unhealthy. You're just living in your dullness, not experiencing. And that is lack of relationship. Ooh. When you're lack of engagement, when you are not open to the engagement of what's beneath the surface in you, how can you relate to the other? Right. That's why I teach on relationships the most, because life is relationship.
It is. I mean, we've said that so many times on the show. You know, relationship to self, relationship to other, and relationship to the divine. Like those are the relationships you'll never get out of. And you can jump from relationship to relationship, but you're going to take these patterns and this framework into those unless you become aware of it and start to break it. Right. So I hope for those of you guys listening at home, and my example is an extreme example, you know, but like think of any of the times in your life where someone has hurt you, or you felt betrayed, or you felt let down or disappointed. And that colors your view of someone and becomes maybe this like energetic stiff arm that you put between you and that person. And I can think of it, you know, at times, even on this show, there was somebody that came on this show. And because of the way he approached me and he approached the situation, it was very uncomfortable and made me very uncomfortable to the extent that we didn't air the conversation. We didn't do any of that. But I'll say, to be honest, like I've held that judgment of him since. And
it's very honest.
And to come into right relationship with that person who I may or may not ever see again is just like letting go of that idea of who they are. Like that was who they are. That's the way they showed up that day, but that doesn't mean that that's who they are. You know what I mean? And letting go of our egos need to be right about who we think someone is.
Yeah, we always want to be right. That will hinder a lot of the relationship. I will say I'm giving you guys some juice today, because I teach this in the course and you have to go through the contemplation, but I'm going to give it to you because we talked about it and I want to give you a tool. So the art of listening, I mean, there are the 4 levels, but the art of listening is life transforming. Okay. And in those times where you mentioned that gentleman that you were not, you know, it affected how you showed up in that conversation, even the truest form of art of listening, I can break that down. That's like an 8-step process, but the real art of listening, it doesn't even matter what the other person is speaking. It's watching the shit that comes up inside you. It's watching how uncomfortable you are. So I will say, you know, we are not the mind. The mind has thoughts that come and go, but when you can have no story or no judgment about what is speaking, that is the truest form of inner listening. Like I had a conversation with someone who had hurt me in the past, and I sat there and I did the work. And instead of speaking or reacting, I listened internally to what was true for me. And so when this was a man that had betrayed me and I saw the thoughts in my head. I was like, this man's ugly. I can't believe I even entertained this. And I'm like, I can't stand being in front of this man. I listened to everything.
Yeah.
I was disgusted with him, but what I saw from listening was I was disgusted with myself, that I had let myself be entertained by this. And that is where the liberation takes place, because the person can be talking and they can be all of what they are, but what is happening inside you? The truest form of art of listening, even when I'm listening to you, I'm like watching what's arising in me. I'm like, oh, my belly feels like a little anxious. Like you're just present. And that's where grace comes in instantly, because you're not hiding from what's true. You're like, so in that conversation where this man was talking and I was watching everything rise, I was like, I can't forgive this person. And that's okay, right? I'm not trying to change my thoughts. I'm just witnessing them. And I'm like, I'm okay with not being able to forgive this person. And there's liberation in that. And then I'm like, I'm okay with it. And then there's joy. And I witnessed myself laughing internally while he was talking. I didn't even know what he was talking about, but I was having this deep moment with my God, because I'm so honest with what's rising. And now I see the root of where I am with the situation. I'm not okay with it. And I wasn't able to forgive at that moment, but I know that I'm not able to forgive. And I know I will get there, but I'm listening. So in those moments of discomfort, when there is like, what the F, who are you? You listen like, oh, I feel like I wasn't heard right now, or I don't feel safe to be with this person, or I need to feel safe. This is what's rising in. This is what this person's teaching me. Like all of relationships show us an aspect of where we are being called to heal and awaken. And so anytime I have a conflict, I'm like, oh, look at the inner child in me that wants to freaking be heard so badly right now. Or like, you're just sitting there and you're breathing through it and you're witnessing yourself. And that's what frees you. Because in the moment of discomfort, you need to take a breath to listen. And there are steps to get there. And I do guide people through that. The root of art of listening is to listen to the dialogue that's happening inside you. And that's awakening. That's the miracle.
Yeah. I mean, it's just, we're so fixated oftentimes on the thing that's causing us pain. We get so zoomed in on them that we lose touch with us. And like you said, creating space, like you're like, oh, my process is helping create space for people just to become aware and to hear and to listen to themselves, because oftentimes we are either thinking that we are our thoughts. We think we are the mind, which you've said over and over. We are not the mind. We are not the mind. But we think we are the mind, and we let that dictate how a situation or a conflict goes. And if it's like, oh, well, screw him, he did X, Y, and Z to me. It's like, then we're going to go into we're in a stress response. We're going to all of our either fight, flight, freeze, fawn, shut down, withdrawal, whatever our like nervous system is, currently experiencing. But like you said, relationships are here to awaken us. And another, I think, way to say that is like, these are mirrors. So what's coming up in him, like notice what's coming up in you.
It becomes fun, actually. I've learned it's to be a game. Like, oh, look at this trigger. Like, oh, let me open this freaking gift, because I'm willing to go so deep, because I do not want it to affect my relationships, my family, my future family, my kids. When I got hurt and when I was cut, I was in so much pain from that betrayal. And I was witnessing physical things around me fall and break. And it becomes so loud, because energy is energy. When you have an unforgiveness toward another, it, number one, affects your physical temple, because your body is in a stress response mode. And it actually eliminates a lot of cellular flow. Like
your digestion shuts down.
So much. Yeah. We can go, there's so much
things.
Science, right? Yeah. Number two, it affects your relationships and how you even engage. And number three, it affects your finances, because one form of hurt in one area of life is going to show up and mirror what your mindset of scarcity looks like, what your belief and the energy flow is for you. And it affects I've witnessed miracles and people who've gone through the process, and even people in India where you clear that relationship with your father. I've seen people's like bank accounts explode or their businesses shift because they were not aware of the root of why they were building their business, is because one example I witnessed a man speak of when he went through the process is he was so unconscious of why all of his businesses kept failing over and over and over again. And when he went through the process, he saw that all of what he was doing was to be better than his brother. Anything that is built from a place of hurt, it will not last.
It's like building a castle on sand.
Yeah. And when he saw that his father always kept telling him, you need to be more like your brother, he had resented his father, but everything he built was to find approval from his father, and nothing was good enough. I mean, this is like, a freaking multimillionaire. And he was telling me, he was like, the $500,000 wasn't enough. The $1 million mark wasn't enough. The $5 million mark wasn't enough. My son wasn't enough. My wife wasn't enough. And he was like, the moment I saw that, I saw how I was never good enough for my father. And all of his relationships started to shift. Like, he shared also how, the business started to pick up because he saw that everything he was building was from a level of comparison, of hurt and seeking.
This is so interesting that you just brought that up, because I was talking to a client recently this week who's in a very similar situation. He's made millions. He's lost millions. He's built insane businesses. They've come crumbling down over and over again. It's like somebody who's a compulsive gambler who wins it all and then right back and loses it all. This is like the pattern. And it's a familial pattern. It's not just his pattern. It runs in his family. And he's like, I don't know how to get out of this, And we were talking about forms of motivation. And it's often that people use pain as a motivator. It is. If I'm overweight and I'm tired of being bullied, and I feel like crap, like I might use that as a motivator to start to take control of my life. Yeah. Or if I'm really in debt or I grew up in certain areas, like I might use the pain I've been through to motivate me to create a new life for myself. Right. Like that happens all the time. Yeah. But what you're saying is anything that's built from that place of hurt versus, because I think of it in two types of motivation. There's away from motivation. Like I'm trying to run away from who I've been or this pain or this experience, and I want to get the hell away from it. Yeah. And that motivates me to do something. Or towards motivation. Like that's what I call like being inspired. It's like I'm being drawn towards something. I'm creating because this is coming through me and I don't know how else to I need to create this thing. I need to bring this thing into the world, which is a very different energy than like I'm trying desperately to get away from this thing. Yeah.
That's beautiful.
Yeah. I wonder, I'm trying to think into like my own life in times that I have been creating from a scarce place or like building something out of not enoughness and how that ultimately ends up creating the same story of like, it's not enough,
Yeah, that's really honest. It's so true because when you're trying, I love what Michael Beckwith says. He says the pain pushes until the vision pulls. And
that's it.
It's exactly that. And that is a powerful moment. And that is where you're living in a life and a creative experience that you've created, that you take responsibility for. And it's like, I witness this all the time. It's like, I will no longer play small. It hurts too much to stay small than it is to expand and know what I'm here to create. Right. And so it's like pulling the vision forward. And I hear what you're saying, where when people are trying to escape, it's going to come back to them because they're running away from what they're here to face. And so that's what that process is and I will tell you, much of our programming as adults, it's so unconscious. It's from when we were in the mother's womb up till age 6. And I will say this, conception is not just having, being impregnated. And conception is when two human beings on a level of consciousness choose to have a soul at some level. And what takes place in the moment of conception is where the souls are at their level of consciousness. And I've witnessed this where, I'll give you a quick story. A woman, and this is from one of my processes in India, where a woman always felt so afraid. All her life, she was so scared. And even though to the world she was beautiful and she was capable, she couldn't shake off the feeling of fear that she had her entire life. And she went to the process to undergo what was beneath that. And in her process, and only the divine can take you there. The mind can only go in the future and in the past, but in surrender, grace will show you. and no one else can do that for you. It's yours and it's personal. But in her process, she saw, because there is a process, like in the parenting process, she saw how at the point of conception, her mother was so afraid because in that culture, in her culture, it was that she was forced to have a son or really expectant of having a son. And her husband had said, if you don't have a son, I'm going to leave you. And the father, that partner and their whole family were going to abandon her because they were so pressuring her. And so in the moment of having sex, she was in so much fear. And so in that consciousness of conceiving a soul, the soul took on the mother's energy. And her whole life, she was afraid. And she, cleared that process so profoundly and liberated herself. And, that's the consciousness that we're not aware of. That's why I'm so passionate to do this work, is because we don't even know. There's so much more than this. There's so much more than this. We come to this planet with purpose and we choose this planet. It's called Karma Bhumi. It's a planet of action. And no soul is forced here. We come to do the work. It's a planet of fast work, spiritual elevation. And when we come here, and many souls just want to be here, we come for the experience to learn and grow. And it said we are here to learn two things: to love and forgive. And we choose our family. And it's to know what it is to forgive and to love. And so when we do this work, it transcends lifetimes. It transcends our ancestry, 7 generations before us and 7 generations after us.
Yeah. Yep. This is a concept that it might be really difficult for a lot of people to wrap their heads around, that I chose to be here, right? You're like, I didn't choose to be here, especially people who are suffering with suicidal ideation and depression and anxiety. And they're like, I don't want to be here. I didn't want to, my parents had me. I didn't get a choice, and in some ways that's traumatizing in itself, because one of the hallmarks of trauma is choicelessness. But in choosing to see that, one, I am a soul, I'm a spiritual being first, before anything else, having a human experience, not a human having a spiritual experience, right? I'm a spiritual being having a human experience with intent I came here to learn, which Michael Beckwith calls it life school,
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah, life school. That's why we're all about being coachable, because that's what this show is all about. Because I believe there's a curriculum of things that I came here to learn. And the circumstances of my life have all been puzzle pieces or quote unquote lessons or grades I've needed to go through in order to get these lessons so that I can ascend to the next phase of my life. Right. And sometimes you've heard this before. If you don't get the lesson, you repeat the class.
Amen.
Right. So if you've I'm just recycling the same relationship over and over again with different people with different names and different faces, but it all feels very familiar. Notice that, or I have a recurring theme, a recurring pattern in my life. That is not on accident, my friends. It is because there's something for you to learn in that. And like you said, it's so powerful that when we run away from it, it will continue to chase us, because the whole purpose is that we turn towards it.
Yeah. Amen. It's the gift that's wanting us to receive it. It's to hold it like a child. I teach this and I witness it all the time within myself. I'm not one that's, ascended from that. I'm here on the planet to do that. And it becomes fun for me because it's like, ooh, look at what this person's teaching me. Me too. I'm so clear on it too. And I own that. It's like, oh, I'm being a bitch right now. I see it. I'm like, oh, look at me. Look at my anger. I'm so mad. I'm judging her right now. I'm judging her. And when you can name that and you can witness it, that is the freaking peace, because what we're trying to be is like Mother Teresa, oh, I'm not that.
I'm so holy. I'm so
yeah. No. But we're not that in that moment. And can you accept it? Yeah, I sure can. Because if that's going to free me from having thoughts of this person recurringly or carry this grudge, I'm going to go there. That's how committed you want to be to this work. Because don't you want the life that you came to live? And you're holding on to what's blocking you from experiencing it.
Right. Talk to me about the spiritual ego.
Tell me about that.
Because it's that part that there is an ego, you got to be careful when you're doing the work, right? And on your spiritual path and really commit to think you're better than or holier thou. And I went through a whole part of this process is when you start to awaken and you start to become aware. Oftentimes the next phase for me was judgment. I started to look at everybody else around me and be like, oh, you're not aware. You're not awake. Like, let me point this out to you.
That's so honest of you.
Yeah. And starting to sort of judge people. And there's a tendency to do that. But then you get to graduate, if you look at it, to like, oh, I can notice this. And that doesn't make me better. It makes me just like them.
Yeah.
Right.
It's the humility.
Yeah. I am no better. And it's not about a hierarchical structure of evolution and I need to be up here and you're down here. It's like, I am all of these.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You know what I mean? And whatever I'm experiencing in you is also in me.
Mm-hmm.
So let me not be so egoic and presumptuous to assume I don't have a part like that. That's dark or that's mean or vengeful or manipulative or, whatever it might be. I have those parts too. Mm-hmm. And the more I'm aware of them and integrate them and look at them, the more they don't control me, and I can use them and I can love them. But to think I don't have them is crazy.
Thank you for saying that. It's also what's brought me to name my business Yin City is the dark that brings the awareness of the light. Like it is the transformative power to be in the void of the stillness of the dark, to embrace the power of the light. And it's witnessing, oh my gosh, it is a death of the ego when you witness yourself because you're like, oh my God, I have been that manipulative, or I've been the manipulator. I've all been on both sides. And in terms of spiritual ego, it could be many levels. One level I know it to be too is that the mind is tricky, the mind is loud, and it'll even use your spiritual awareness to bypass what's right in front of you to experience. Like I've witnessed this within myself. I can go into deep states of meditation and process. And I've also witnessed like when there is something for me to face or even something physical to get done, I'm like, let me go meditate. And but I witness the mind. The mind's tricky. The mind will use spirituality as a scapegoat to face what's yours to finish. And so that is a form of like, also like the spiritual ego to go there. It could be anything. It could be like, oh, I'm working on my body. I'm going to go work out. I'm going to swim, but you're actually avoiding what the source is wanting you to address. So there's a form of spiritual bypass there.
Yes.
And then in terms of judgment, it is lack of humility is the biggest, one of the most powerful forms of awareness and something that I guide people through in the relationship process, because here we are thinking that, we all want to be seen and heard and loved. And when you can come to the knowing that everybody is saying the same song, like me, how you dress, how you show up, how you engage in relationship, you're wanting to be seen, you want to be heard, you want to be validated. That's everybody. You want to give love and you want to receive love. Everybody wants that. And what happens in our spiritual ego is like, we think we know what's up. We want to, project that we are all good, and we sometimes block the opportunity of being humbled to know that we're actually, that this person can give us something to learn from as far as we may even be on the journey. But because we think we're in a higher state, and I've witnessed this with leaders even, and that's okay. It's that, even spiritual leaders that want to like excel forward, it's where it's about them, but it's not. It's like the humility is, how can I serve? And that's going to help me be more effective and outreaching through my work versus how can I be seen? And so the spiritual ego, that we can go in so many directions. I don't address it so much as that, as more as like, it's an ego in general.
Yeah.
It's the ego that wants to be fed and wants to look higher than, and I'm guilty of that.
Well, and you're right. The ego can cloak itself in spirituality and call it better than or right or whatever, and that humility of being able to say, me too, me too. And we all have the ego that wants to be seen, that wants to be right, that wants to matter, that wants to be significant and important. And really I've noticed it's like, it wants to be right so bad. It will even be right about how wronged I've been. Like it'll stay, it'll be like, I've been the most betrayed, or I've been the most traumatized.
Wanting to be seen so hard.
I've gone through the most pain. You know, you don't know my story.
Yeah, we see that in people who are really hurt.
Yeah. And in the past, it was like, I held that on as like a badge of honor to be significant. You know, and that was the ego, because what would happen if I let go of that hurt? Then am I not as significant anymore?
Wow.
Do I not get attention anymore? Do I not matter anymore? And for me, healing has come in letting go of all of the things, like the things that say, like, if I were to let the pain go and let the story go, like I still am me.
Yeah.
You know, I'm still me. And that version of me still deserves love, you know.
So much of it. Yeah. That's so beautiful. It's so interesting, the seasons that we go in, because the gift is that the people in our world will continue to bless us and show us what parts of us we haven't addressed yet. That is always, and we're here on this planet to do this work. So there's more. But I hear you. I mean, even recently I just witnessed, you know, in the physical body too, like the right side of my body, which is like a masculine side. And it's like feeling like I was carrying all this burden as well. And I was, you know, I tuned into like, why does this continue? Like, what is here? It also on my chest, I've had like a scar, and just seeing the manifestation of that, there's an energetic block. And so when I see something that's really in alignment with me, that's showing up physically, I cannot deny that there are an energetic like manifestation that's not allowing me to fully express myself. And when I went there, even just recently, I was like, what is this? What can I really be honest and ask myself the questions like, what am I not okay with right now? And what is like showing me something to heal and to open that portal, open it up. Because if it's showing up again and again, which it was happening in my body, like this pain on my right side and then something on my physical chest, I'm like, okay, it's nobody else's. It's me who's going to look at this because it's the time to. And it was so, you will never, it can be so minute. Like when I allowed myself to sit with, okay, what is coming up for me right now? Like, can I be so honest to drop in? And it was such a big thing. It was, and I'm still looking at aspects of this. It like in my true vulnerability, it was this not okayness of being so uncomfortable or being embarrassed or being blamed for something. Like it's this net of safety in sistership. And since I was young, like where it wasn't okay to be wrong. And if I'm wrong in this situation, it feels really humiliating and I don't want to be wrong. So I unconsciously say things or do things to deflect attention away from me. I saw that in this process this last week, and it like hurt people, because what happens is, again, when we're so hurt, our unconscious mind runs the show and we're just trying to deflect out not wanting to be hurt or abandoned or what was it. And for me, it was a program of, it was not feeling like safe to be in the wrong. And so my unconscious habits were to make sure that everybody knew that I wasn't wrong. And I would deflect and say words or manipulate the situation so I would not be at the attention of being wrong.
Or I'll make you wrong so that I'm not wrong.
Oh my gosh, who hasn't done that in relationships? I've done that in my past partnerships.
Same. And thank you for sharing that. I mean, I hope you guys can like see the power in one, sitting with yourself and asking those tender questions. Cause it's like, that's the part that hides in shame, you know, because shame wants to hide. It doesn't want to be looked at. It wants to like live in secrecy. But like when you can bring your loving awareness to it and say like, I'm not going to make you wrong for feeling wrong. You know what I mean? Like how much do we end up
really safe for you to say that right there.
perpetrating the thing we're afraid of? We're making ourselves wrong by not looking at it, by ignoring it and like putting it off to the side and be like, da, 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 da. Like instead of like bringing it into our awareness and saying like, this part of me too is welcome here.
Yeah. You know, it's safe to be wrong.
It's okay to make mistakes.
Yeah.
It's okay to be human. And how that might be a program that like when we're young and we feel it wrong, And then we start to project that idea of whoever made us feel wrong. And the stages of hurt, and we create that the cut of the first time we felt wronged, or that we made a mistake, or we were humiliated. And now how we unconsciously see that person as a threat all of the time, and how we try to protect ourselves from it. Yeah.
So many layers. Yeah.
So many layers.
That is so true. And that's what is such a vulnerable, like, that was something new that came up for me. Like I don't speak about things unless I have sat with it enough to see the strength of it. And I witnessed it so hard. Like, oh my gosh, look at this like physical thing that's allowing me to look at how I haven't felt safe in some of my relationships. And it's like on my heart, and also like seeing, our parents do the best that they can, and we're all doing our best. But seeing, I've witnessed some of my patterns and I didn't like it and I couldn't accept it. And I'm like, why am I like that? And then I witnessed it in my mother, and I love her. She's amazing. But, I witnessed a pattern that I was like, I don't like having it, but it was learned. And it was like not having full accountability of responsibility for things. And then I watched this behavior of not wanting to take the full responsibility of something. I wanted to deflect it. I wanted to put it on not necessarily blame other people, but don't look at me because I don't want to be looked at when I'm wrong.
Yes, I so relate to that, because if I am seen in that, what would happen?
Yeah. And I will be the first to raise my hand where I have put people down in the wrong, like the people that I love, like you did that,
Yeah.
like, and we do it to each other. Oh, let's make you sure you're wrong.
It's a blame game in relationships that everybody plays versus self-responsibility and accountability. It's like, no, you made me feel this way and you did this and you did right? But like that fear of being wrong is so deep for so many people. I don't think it's just, us, both of us sitting here, it's 10 out of, we're batting 1,000. With both of us having that as a deep wound. And I think about it just from my perspective is like, if I'm seen in my mistake or my failure or my wrongness, and I don't hide it, like I don't deflect it, I don't turn it back on you, and I actually am witnessed in that, if that happens, then what? What is the thing I'm so afraid of that I think is going to love is going to be taken away? You're going to leave me, right? You insert horrible thing, because that's why we're running from it, right? So I play that if-then game a lot with myself.
It's good.
If I do this, if I actually feel this thing, if I actually say what's true, then insert the negative narrative or story that we're telling, then I'll be alone. Right. And
you'll be abandoned.
I'll be abandoned.
Ugh,
and
so
that's
big.
the story for so many of us, where it's like, this
So
is
big.
the root of perfectionism, people.
Yeah. I've dealt with that.
I don't believe I can make mistakes, because if I make mistakes, I will be left. And so therefore I spend my entire life trying to be perfect.
So big. Yeah. It's so big for you to say. And for me, it was like, I haven't like felt the safety to be in the wrong with someone like, and it's rooted in family too, like I love my family. It's just like the deeper things that are there. And in my upbringing, and my sister was kind of a bully when I was younger. I didn't feel safe to be wrong. And even as an adult, she'll point out to me sometimes, you did that. And it's like, so it doesn't feel safe to be held in being wrong and being accepted. So it's like, what if I was wrong and I let myself be wrong? Can that space be held? Like, yeah, I'm wrong. What if I can be held in that space?
And that's okay.
That's the work. It's the work to even create the space, even if the other is not able to.
Right.
It's to be able to be so empowered by you being wrong that, yeah, I was wrong. And even if they're going to cut you in that, be like, I already know that doesn't need to affect me, because I can hold the space for me to be wrong within myself, instead of expecting the other person to hold you.
But then, because of experiences like that, most people go through their whole life, and then if they do make a mistake, one, they'll live in denial or like act like they did it and pretend and lie to themselves, because if there's like tendencies to do that, or I know I've done something wrong and I shame myself and I beat myself up for it. and I berate and abuse myself. And I end up becoming the perpetrator of my own abuse.
Mm-hmm.
Now it's no longer mom, dad, sister, brother that's making me feel bad for it. I will do it. I will make myself feel horrible for what I did.
That's big.
And part of healing for me has become, I refuse to become the thing that I'm trying to heal from. Right? I'm not going to abuse myself. And that's what it is when we speak to ourselves like that. I'm not, that might sound drastic, but it is. It's abuse, the way we speak to ourselves sometimes.
Yeah.
And to say that, like, I am going to be, how can I create a loving environment with another where it is safe to be wrong if it's not even safe for me?
To be wrong. So good, right? Yeah, I will say that has affected, my relationship. I witnessed that, it's going to, in relationship, I read, it's like you want to bring in intimate partnership, which is the most revealing because you will not be able to hide. When they say it's like relationships, you want to awaken faster, get into a relationship because they will see all of you. It's like the world will see a part of you, but you cannot hide from what's here. And that's where that's where acceleration takes place. And I have witnessed that in previous relationship where I didn't allow myself to feel safe to be wrong with that person, but I also ridiculed when they were wrong. So it was like a pattern from early childhood that when you're in partnership, you want to be able to create a space that you're really essentially healing each other's childhood wounds. And when you can have a partner that can support you in that's the drastic work where they're soothing the wounds that you are here to heal. And I witnessed that in partnership where I was like, I don't think this is the partner for me because I need to have the ability to grow in that space where it's honored and accepted that this is the wound. It's not like we're feeding the wound, we're healing it.
Yes. Yeah. I was having this conversation with you the other night. I was like, I want the relationship dynamics that I'm in to be healing, deeply healing. I don't want to give, I don't want to create relationships and be a part of dynamics that then that person and I have to go heal from.
Yeah, that's not what you're calling for. Yeah.
I want to call in people, friends and partners that help me in my healing and vice versa, that this is a safe place to look at this thing. This is a safe place to, yes, it's going to get activated. Yes, it's going to come up. And you're going to witness all the parts of you that want to run, hide, lie, shame, all the things. But like we have created the space where this is allowed for that to come forward and for it to be worked through. Because what we need is why relationship is the container for our wounding and our healing is because we need an empathetic witness. Like we can like go through our process and say it's okay or whatever, but it really gets reestablished when there's another human being that can witness you in your wrongness and say, I love you too.
Yeah.
Like I love that.
Yeah. That's so,
and I'm not going
healing.
anywhere. I'm not going to abandon you, even though you made a mistake, even though you hurt me. I'm not going anywhere.
Yeah. That's what we're calling in. That's what we are here to embody in friendships, especially, and in intimate relationship. That's the real work. And I've been witnessing that. It's like, I've witnessed, I had a realization this week is how I hadn't felt safe in some of my relationships and how I didn't allow myself to feel safe in those relationships because of not wanting to, because number one of the own mind's idea of what success looked like for me, because we have all our own programmings. And number two, I was my own, I would say not necessarily guarding. It was my own reasoning of not wanting to be looked at in the wrong. And I made a conscious choice this week. I was like, no, these are my people. Like they're showing me who I'm here to rise in. But previous, I was kind of like, I watched a pattern where I'm very independent and I'm also like, I very internalize my processes, but I don't necessarily allow for people to see it because that's just how I like to process because I can go direct with my divine and that's very profound for me. However, I have also not let other people see me in the process because I didn't want to be looked out. Yeah. And that's like totally shifted a lot. That's when you've cultivated some amazing an amazing tribe of energy or your partner, when you can really, really, really be all of your ugliness and your shit's reflected to you in a loving way. And then everyone is healed.
You know, you've seen me in my shit. And at the beginning of this year, I went through one of the hardest things I've been through so far to date in this life. And there will be a day I share about that. Today's not that day, but I will tell that story at some point. But it required me to make a choice. Am I going to hide and in shame and never tell anyone about this? Or am I going to call on the people that are safe, that have earned the right to enter into my most intimate experience and let them see my mess?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I did that, and you were part of that. That group of people and women I called on to say, hold me in my mess, hold me in my failure, hold me in my wrong, in my mistake, in my darkness. And in doing that, it showed me there is no part of me that's unlovable.
So beautiful. Because
you guys showed up. And you were those empathetic witnesses that I needed to just bear it and be like, this is where I am. This is what I've done. This is I'm experiencing. And what happened, I was received. Then you were like, I was loved. I was held. No one ran out. No one was like judging me and like, oh my God, Tori, I can't believe you were going through this thing. And that has given me so much courage to keep letting people in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's so beautiful.
Yeah.
It's so done. It's so done. Even as a facilitator, a lot of what I share are my personal experiences. And that's what draws people, because I'm so real and transparent about the things that I've experienced that have cut me, and I've processed it and forgiven and done the freaking work to be on the other side to say this works.
It works.
Yeah. It is in the surrender, and it is in the grace of spirit that you can allow yourself to freaking dissolve and to die. Which
that is such a powerful place to live from, because then these shadows, these secrets, these things, they don't live. It's like, you clear out the cobwebs.
You always,
you know what I mean? And it's like, it doesn't control you anymore. But when you harbor secrets and you harbor guilt and shame and what I'm talking about is the things that you are so embarrassed of that you wouldn't tell anyone about, and we all have those things. I want to live a life of liberation, and the only way to be free is to bring those things into the light. And I'm not saying you have to disclose it and share it for the world, because you don't. Not everyone deserves the right to know everything about you. There's something to be said about having boundaries, and you don't need to be transparent for transparency's sake, but cultivate people in your life and community and friendships and relationships where all of you is really welcome. And it's safe to fuck up, because I used to have a story that was like, I can't fuck up, or I'm going to fuck this up. And I was so scared to do anything wrong. I would play small and I would tread lightly. And now I'm like, I live from this place of like, I can't really fuck it up.
Yeah. There's always the grace.
There's grace. There's grace.
Open the pathways. Yeah. And for those who also really seek those type of relationships, it's like, for me, it's always the relationship with self and the safety to be in yourself. And sometimes people don't know how to even be safe with everything that's right here.
Yes.
And I mean, energetically, like moving the body will allow for you to get there. But honestly, being in a space where you can even out loud say, I am in acceptance of where I am right now. Like I am learning and loving to accept the journey right here. And that can be sometimes even for me, sometimes the hardest part, because can you accept the life you've created at this given moment? And that is one of the biggest blocks in relationship is our lack of acceptance toward our childhood, toward our past, toward our personalities. And we all have multiple personalities. Like we have like our hangry personality, we have our relationship personality, but I've witnessed it within myself, the conflicts that I created is because I could not accept where I was, and it was blocking me from experiencing what was here. And so I would say, you know, in terms of friendship, and we're so blessed because we've done that work, that we're magnifying and mirroring the people to do that work with us. It's to be so safe in this now, to be so safe in the things that you didn't do and the things that you did do, and acknowledge that like that is still worthy of being loved. And so much grace is here to access. And in me, it's having a stronger bond. Like I talk to my divine like my best friend. And that's something that I was taught in India, and that I will always teach is when you can have a bond with your highest self as your soul highest friend, nothing can, they say you could be the biggest sinner, but grace will always be at your feet because you have no filter. Like I'm so in full transparency and integrity. Like one of the highest lessons is integrity. It's like, oh, I'm being this right now and I need your help. Like you need to come in and help me. Like when I'm witnessing, when I did that art of listening with that person that had betrayed me, I was like, I am feeling all this shit right now. You need to help me. You need to help me like release this and forgive, because I will never take this into another relationship. You need to come in. Like, and I'm telling my best friend, you need to go in, and I demand of it. Like, and I say, thank you. Like, thank you for being the friend that I'm seeking right now. Like, that's where I go. I go directly within, which is why I'm able to access something quick, because I know that is a trust within that nothing can break. And then because I have a trust within myself, you don't have to even have a name for it. God, creator, source, Krishna, Allah, Jesus, it's only it's all personal. Once I've established that, it's like so easy for me to access that within my friendships because I have a foundation.
And if you don't have access to grace for yourself, you're going to find it really hard to give grace to other people, right? Like,
it's true.
You know, it's, or if you find that you let everyone out, you know, and sometimes you're like, oh, I let everybody have a million chances and I give everybody the benefit of the doubt and I always let people off the hook. Is that really what we're saying? We're not saying it's about not having boundaries or not standing up for yourself or letting people walk all over you and calling that grace. That's not what we're saying. It's about accountability, and you're having accountability with self, right? And but A Course in Miracles says a miracle is a shift in perception. And when you're saying, come in and help me, you're calling on the divine saying, help me change the way I see this. Help me have a new perspective about how I'm choosing to perceive this person, this circumstance, or my experience of it in this moment. And that is a miracle, you know?
Yeah, it's because as humans, we can only do so much. We are much more expansive than this. But when you're calling upon, it's like the higher power, grace, angels, they respond when you ask. It's like a friend. How can they know what you need when you do not ask? And it's like the minute you ask, they say it's like you take one step toward the divine takes a million steps toward you. That's the transformation. And that's what I help guide, because people, you could be atheist. Grace is grace. Grace will rain down on you. People are actually more spiritual when they don't have a label. You know, there's lots of people who are atheists who are very spiritual, and there are people who call themselves by a certain religion who don't do the work. And the whole root of it is like your true personal connection with source that is overflowing from you. And how do you allow for that to overflow? It's to get right with yourself and get right with your relationships.
What is your definition of Christ consciousness?
Ooh, that is... I will say this, that Christ is not in just one individual, as in Jesus the Christ. Jesus the Christ is such a homie and brother, and I love him so much. I call him Yeshua. It is the all-knowing union with the supreme light. It is the ability, no matter what faith, to feel this incredible, and I wouldn't even say feel, it's to embody and express from the light that is ever flowing from you. And that is all what we are striving to achieve in our life, in getting right our relationships, in working on our bodies. It's to be an ever-flowing channel that the Christ consciousness flows through you, and your purpose is being delivered and helping so many, because you're just an open channel. Like Jesus is so open and free. Buddha, the same. Krishna, many ascended masters that have walked the planet in high states of consciousness, because they were a divine vessel for the divine Christ to flow through in their words and their actions. And it was never a resistance. To be in full Christ consciousness is to allow for that to be moved and work through you, and people can feel that, you know?
I love that answer. Somebody asked me that this week, and I've sat with that question. And in the moment when I was asked it, what came to me was the frequency of love.
I love that. It's very simple.
Yeah, that was like what came to me. And then she said something that I thought was also profound. She was like, for her, it's where giving and receiving meet. It's like there is no resistance. There is no separation. It is the oneness, you know? And I love what you said. It's the one union, like the field of all that is, you know, which is light and love. And we think we're separate from that. You know, we think we're disconnected. We think I'm in a separate body with a separate personality, and I'm here and you're there. And what we awaken to is the remembrance that we are all connected, and we're all connected to that infinite source of love. And it's like, you know, I think it's the quote from Rumi. It's like, you're not, a drop in an ocean, you're the ocean in a drop. And we are all just beautiful expressions of that divine love.
All spark of the universe, which is the Christ. It's it's all that is good. They say like, there is no name for God, and there are many. And it's the great I am. It's the Om. It's the vibration of Om is all that is good within the universe expressed in that vibrational sound. And it's the great I am. That is the Christ consciousness that feeds and moves and gives without end. And to speak from that, to embody that, it's a high regard and high calling, and it's not something to take lightly, but you know it when it's there and you tap into it. It's like when two or more are gathered and you feel the presence of Christ. It's this energetic love that is interchanging and being dynamic and fluid, and something is being transmuted in that space. Healing is being like felt, you know?
I do know. And as you just said that, this is like force in this field, and this force of love that never ends. It just takes me back to what our conversation was right before this about the fears that we have about being wrong or being judged or this, that, and the other. And if we really do have and develop a relationship with Source, and we really know and connect into that never ends, that it won't end if you're wrong.
You're right. Because we could be all that we are.
It's not going to end just because you made a mistake.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, that's the unconditional love that you develop with your inner friend.
Yes.
It's like I show up with my best friend like a complete mess. And I am so raw and real with that. And it gives me the permission to be so raw and real and naked in my outer circles. You know, like this is all of me, and I know that God's got me.
Yeah.
And then when I'm in a space of teaching and in friendship, that's what's holding me to that. It's like I can be this messy and stand in my power, because this is not going anywhere. This interconnection, this Christ conscious flow that's moving through me is always going to be alive. It's just us being willing to tap into it and remember that it's there.
It's like this idea that God's got me. Like I can be all of this because I'm like spoken for, you know, and
that's beautiful.
And, you know, I think for those listening, if you are feeling this connection, you're feeling this conversation, you're still with us and you're holding on, like the work that you do comes from this place, you know what I mean? This place of embodied knowing and connection. And if you're looking for support on your path, on your journey with relationships to yourself, with the relationship to other people, with your relationship to your creator, if you're struggling in that, you feel stuck, you feel like you're replaying patterns, like you feel like you don't know how to listen to yourself, or you struggle in conflict, like Merriliz is a beautiful guide for, you know, a path forward, because there is, and we don't have to continue to recycle the past over and over and over again. We really can create something new, but it does require work, you know, and I don't know of more meaningful work than this, you know, that's truly not just a gift to your future partner and family and friends, but it's the gift to yourself and the gift to the world that's how we become the change that we want to see in the world, you know?
It's the gift that keeps on giving.
It is. So please,
knowing yourself,
tell people like how they can know more about you, how people can work with you, what that looks like, because I know people are going to be asking.
Thanks, Tori. It's a beautiful journey inward and outward, because all of what I teach is the root of wealth, relationship, and connection to self. And that starts with obviously you. So YinCityLife.com, I have a meditation that really can help just deepen your connection to source. And my relationship course for you, of course, I'll give you, all your listeners, a super awesome discount. I have a relationship course to go deeper into the layers of art of listening, of your relationships, the domination game, which the mind plays. And it's broken down that the process is real because it's a science. The science is you actually need to raise the energy of the base of the spine up. It's called the Kundalini, so that you can receive in awareness, so that you can awaken. You need to move the body to open through breath, and in the listening, that nothing can take the space in your silence with yourself. So it is a science to look at, learn, experience it, apply it, and witness your relationship shift.
Yeah. So if you want that framework, please go to the show notes right now. We're going to put all the information about Merriliz, how you can connect with her online, as well as how you can get a discount for her relationship course. And we're also going to be putting access to tickets to get for Radiance Festival, because that's coming up June 1st. I'm going to be there.
Yes, you are.
So excited to be leading an alternative health and psychedelic therapy panel. We've got some amazing experts. There's going to be so many amazing DJs. Tell people what they can get excited about Radiance this year.
Radiance is incredible. It's an immersive day of workshop, yoga, speakers, breath work, music, and it is a transformational, fun experience. So you get to dabble into whatever you like to do. I, myself, and my business partner, Chris, we lead a program called Sacred Lounge, Movement, Meditation, and Music. We have Soul Rising, MC Yogi, DJ Dress, DJ Taz. So it's a really awesome experience for the community and beyond, because Vegas needs what it has been all along, which is a core rock of spiritual uprooting. It's like we all need to come together, and Vegas, of all places in the desert, needs that.
Yeah. And we're going to do it June 1st, you guys. So go grab your tickets. We'll see you at Radiance Festival. All of that is in the show notes. And I just want to say thank you so much.
I love
for
you.
Spending time
it's
with
good
me.
to sit with you and be cozy.
Yes. You're always welcome back anytime.
I love you.
Tell people how they can find you online.
Yeah, so at Merriliz, MERRILIZ, that's my Insta, and yin.city at Instagram, and then YinCityLife.com. So fun to be with you today.
Thank you for being here. I hope you will share this episode with a friend. Leave us a rating and review. That's the best way you can say thank you and bless this to make sure it gets out to more listeners. If this touched you, tag us at the Coachable Podcast on Instagram. We love you. Thank you for being here. We'll see you next week on the Coachable Podcast.
Yay.